Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivamy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are talking about the Netflix prequel series. We're talking about The Witcher Blood Origins.
Witcher Blood Origins. If you're like, what happened before The Witcher? Here you go.
Here you go. It's going to be The Witcher Blood Origins. This is the one. So this is the prequel series. It just came out on Netflix. 4 episodes in length. We are going to be covering the entirety of the series. And as always, whenever we cover a new TV show or movie, spoiler warning ahead, but we're going to give you a spoiler-free review before we get into the spoiler-filled section. So if you're on the fence about watching it, not sure if it's your thing, not sure if it's worth your time, we're going to give you a spoiler-free review. And then once you hear the theme music, that is going to be when we get into our spoiler-filled section. Just, you regulars, you know the deal, but this is if you're new.
This is if you're new. That's how it goes. I feel like we should change our theme music to something like, spoilers ahead, here come the spoilers. But that doesn't work for week when there's no spoilers. But I think it's a good idea.
That's the general
You
plan.
know what? It's a new year. Just throwing out new ideas for what we could do.
I understand.
The spoiler-filled section.
The spoiler-filled section, new theme song. I'll leave that for you to work on.
Okay, I think it's going well.
I think it's going great. So we'll have that all wrapped up in a neat little package soon, I'm sure.
Pretty much done.
It's pretty much done. It's basically there. We're just in post-production, and that's all it'll take. Just a little polish.
Little nick.
A little polish here and there.
Yeah, like check my levels.
Yeah, and then we'll be fine. We'll be fine. But for the spoiler-free review for The Witcher Blood Origins, let's start with the simple question. Diana, did you like it?
I did not like it, and I'm sad about that because I like The Witcher in general. And it's a very weird show, and we actually talked about this off mic just a little to try to figure it out. It's a show where they haven't done anything poorly, and it's just boring and still bad. It's like, oh, the costumes look great, and I think these actors are really good, and the story makes sense for the most part, but also I just don't care about anyone or what's happening, and I'm just not compelled to enjoy any of it. There's like one breakout performance star that I would say she's not in it enough to make it worth watching, but she's great. And then the rest of it, I'm just like, I'm so bored and I don't care. And yeah, they didn't make it very motivated. They didn't make it very fun. They didn't make it super action driven. It is just a lot of like, do you want to hear some plot? So I was bored. And then every time they'd introduce a fun character, they wouldn't be in the show for very long. So that was always a little disappointing as well. So that's my basic vibes of The Witcher Blood Origin. Andrew, how did you like it?
I feel about the same as you for the most part, where I just kind of feel like it fizzles. It's just a show that's all fizzle for the most part. It doesn't really go anywhere. It just kind of kills a bit of time. It's less than the sum of its parts somehow, which is a really disappointing thing. I agree that most of the things, other than I will have some heavy criticisms of the writing, but most of the things in the show are actually quite well done. I do think that there are some good performances. I do think that, yeah, the costumes look good. A lot of the stuff looks good. Clearly, they didn't have the budget that they needed to have to do this show, and that does hold it back a little bit. But for the most part, there's a lot to love here. And I don't end up loving any of it, quite frankly. So it's just kind of a meandering kills 4 hours of time, and that's it. Like, if you absolutely love The Witcher, and maybe if you're just looking to kill 4 hours of your day, yeah, throw it on. But for the most part, I don't think it really brings anything new to the table. It doesn't add anything to the Witcher lore, and I don't think it really pops as a standalone series.
No, yeah, I'll agree with all of that. Yeah, if your favorite parts of The Witcher somehow are all the parts about politics and borders and everything and like allegiances, you might love this show. But as far as I know, that's no one's favorite part of The Witcher. Everyone's favorite part of The Witcher is Geralt, Yennefer, or Jaskier.
Yes.
And Jaskier's here for 2 whole minutes. If you were like me and you were like, but Jaskier's in it. Spoiler, only 2 minutes of Jaskier.
Yeah, it really does feel like this is almost made by an AI algorithm that it is frankly just Netflix being like, here is our budget, here is what people like, how can we hit the minimum landmark requirements to get all of these things? And an AI machine was like, The Witcher, we can afford 2 minutes of Yaskier, prequels will do okay, we don't have the budget for a lot of fights, avoid that. So it really does feel like just the minimum legal requirement to turn a profitable product. And it doesn't feel like there's a lot of heart or soul here, unfortunately.
Yeah,
even though there's a lot of things where it does feel like a lot of people worked on this who did a great job. It just doesn't have the heart or soul behind it.
Yeah, I'll agree with all of that, which is so disappointing because it's like, oh wow, this person did an incredible job on costumes and hair and makeup, and it's like, but none of it feels good and none of it works. But you're like, you should be really proud of yourself, even though I'm gonna dunk on this show for an hour. The actors are all pretty much across the board really good, but I feel nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that happens. I don't know how you have really good actors who make me feel nothing.
Yeah, and I that is exactly where I'm at. I also feel nothing, but if I met any of these actors in real life, I'd be like, oh my God, you did such a great job. I mean it sincerely.
I would sincerely mean it. Like, I'm not going to tell Michelle Yeoh she wasn't incredible.
Right. Well, I would not say that to her for many reasons.
Yeah.
But some of the news stars for which it's the first time I am seeing them, I'm like, you are great. I hope you have a great career. Like, you are someone who pops, who shines. You work, and I just don't feel anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
No vibes.
And can it be spoiled?
No, but only because literally in the first 2 minutes, Minnie Driver says everything that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So if you watch the first 2 minutes, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
She tells Yaskier everything that's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's one of those stories within a story. It is that, like, and then at the end of the series, we close the book and it says the Witcher Blood Origins. It is very much that. But yeah, we are told what the story is up front, and yeah, I don't think that there's any real twists or turns other than, I would say one, but it just kind of feels like nonsense, so I wouldn't even call it a big twist or turn. A few nonsense moments.
Well, yeah.
Where if you don't watch the show and you hear us describe it, then, and then later go watch the show, you'll be like, oh, I see this coming now, but there was no scenario in which any of that would have been a predictable moment anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, so not really spoilable.
No, I don't think it's spoilable.
Minnie Driver just said it all.
So I think we're both a meh on this show.
A real meh.
Yeah.
I would say not even a laundry fold for me.
Yeah, I would. You can. Yeah, it's not even a background show for me.
A laundry fold is my minimum, like.
Yeah.
And it's not there.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a little bit below a background show for me. You have to be, I think, really in love with the Witcher property. But also that sweet spot where you love it but aren't precious about it.
Ooh, very difficult.
Yeah. That level of fandom where it's like, it doesn't need to be good. It just needs to be the thing that I like to hit that fix. So I think that it's there. So that's where we're at for a spoiler-free review. But now let's get into a spoiler-filled section. Let's talk more about The Witcher Blood Origins. So we have seen all 4 episodes of The Witcher Blood Origins, a tight, brief little show that still wastes a lot of time plot-wise in terms of its speed and efficiency. But I do like that it's 4 episodes. I do like that it's a tight 40 minutes. For the most part, it does feel edited down, just kind of poorly structured. Well-paced, but poorly structured, which I know pace and structure are often related, but they are different things, and I do think it's well-paced but poorly structured.
I can agree with that, because it also has a huge problem, which is I like that it's only 4 episodes because I didn't like it, but it might even be better if it was longer, because, like, The Witcher is 8 episodes, and it's got 3 main characters. This is 4 episodes with about 9 main characters.
Yeah.
We have the 7, and then we have, like, 2 main bad guys. So you're trying to squeeze, like, 9 characters into 4 episodes that are about 45 minutes each. And you're not really going to get a lot of emotional resonance or fun or, like, feeling from most of the characters in that short a span of time. So I think that's also a big problem. And also there's just so much plot. Like, it's not like it's like 4 episodes of like, oh, we just sit with the characters and they talk and we learn about them and who they are. It is like, it's mostly narration by Minnie Driver.
Yeah.
So there is too much and not enough happening at the same time.
It is a combination of the both. So for those of you who didn't watch it, I would say that the simple structure of this, it is hundreds of years. I don't know the exact time.
1,200 years.
1,200 years before the timeline of The Witcher. And it is a very simple story. And it is a tale of, you've seen it in every fantasy thing, a tale of an unlikely group of heroes who come together. And one of them has the fate of being the first of an important thing.
Oh!
So that's it. You saw it in Wheel of Time.
Did they win?
You saw it in Lord of the Rings. You've seen it in literally every possible trope that's imaginable.
Every D&D campaign you've ever listened to.
Yeah. So it's nothing. It's nothing new around the sun. But at the same time, I don't say that to knock on that story formula. That formula done well can be one of the most pleasurable things. It's incredibly fun and playful. It's a formula that works. Not here, but it is a formula that works.
I love a found family.
Oh, yeah. We adore a found family.
We adore a found family in this house. You give me a Guardians 1, you give me a Furious movie. And I will absolutely adore a well-done found family movie. No one here feels like family, except maybe Brother Death and Meldoff, the dwarf lady.
Yes, they do feel like they become family.
They are the only two, and they are not in it enough.
Yeah.
So the rest of them, I'm just like, they are literally just hanging out. This isn't a found family. Like, I don't believe you're going to make sacrifice plays for each other, or that you're in love, or that you
met
think
a day ago,
or that you think each other rules, or anything like that.
Yeah.
But a good found family? Oh.
Yeah. Love the idea of it. So, like, it's a found family, unlikely band of heroes coming together story. We've seen it a bunch of times. It's a story that works. The narrative device with which they decide to tell this story is an elf played by Minnie Driver, who is a time-traveling, world-hopping elf. Basically, Uatu the Watcher, but an elf.
She can also, like, stop time and teleport and make, like, flowers appear.
She is omniscient, omnipotent. She is everything. She is the Alpha and the Omega. She is all things that has ever existed.
But she can't write a song, apparently.
But she can't write a song or tell a story, except for when she tells a story to the storyteller to tell the story. So the framing device of this series is Jaskier is on a battlefield. Time stops. The time-traveling, teleporting, all of existence, sees everything elf played by Minnie Driver, takes him to a field to tell him a story, to tell people, because no one's telling this story other than her who's telling the story. And then he listens while Minnie Driver's elf narrates then the rest of the series. So Jaskier has like 2 minutes of screen time in the first episode, 1 minute in the last, and that is it. And Minnie Driver doesn't even have 1 minute in the last.
No, just some more voiceover. You never see her again.
Yeah, why? I don't understand this device other than, like, there's no reason for it for me. Minnie Driver does not need to be there. It almost feels like they're like, we need to cash in on the star power of Minnie Driver. And nothing but love and respect to Minnie Driver, but I'm like, you're not the one, like, you're not stunt casting famous.
No, because Michelle Yeoh's already here, having the most fire year of her life in 2022. So you already have stunt casting in her. And the reason you brought Jaskier in was that he's a fan favorite. So why is Jaskier not narrating the show? And if you can't afford Joey Beatty for more than 2 days, he can go in a booth and do just as much narration as Minnie Driver. And it would be so much more charming and connected to the world.
And literally a fan favorite character who is literally a storyteller.
Literally.
But is not telling a story, is instead being told a story in order to tell. It is such a wild framing device.
It is a wild framing device, but they back it up that she is not a storyteller because she's not a good narrator.
That is true.
She does need Jaskier because literally every single episode she would be like, and then 1 became 2. And then 2 became 3 every time they'd meet another person because there's 7 of them. And I was furious by the time she got to the number 7. I was like, this isn't a children's show. I'm not 7 years old and need you to keep adding numbers together for me, Minnie Driver.
Now, I actually preferred when she was counting numbers like a children's series. Because when she did anything else, it was infuriating because it was just her stating the subtext of a scene.
Oh, yeah.
So there would be other times where it would be like the mage and the empress. And like the empress would be like, it'll be all right. Don't worry about it, mage. And then the actor who plays the mage would look like distrusting and contemplative. And then Minnie Driver would come in and be like, he's distrusting and contemplative in that moment. I'm like, you are ruining this guy's performance. And I'm not mad at you, Minnie Driver. You are saying the lines you were told to say. The insecure writing of this, you've ruined these performances by having her come in randomly and state what in a script is in italics, where it's like, character looks thoughtfully into the distance. It is Minnie Driver just reading the italics and being like, the character then looked thoughtfully in the distance. It's like, but what? Shut the fuck up.
This show has no captions for the hearing impaired. You don't need them.
It's described video.
It's described video. It's built in. They found a new feature so they don't have to do that. And it's Minnie Driver describing everyone's face and emotional reaction.
Yeah.
It absolutely happens.
Yeah.
100%.
So when she goes back to counting, I'm like, oh, thank God. Because at least counting does not interrupt and ruin an actor. Accounting is like, I feel insulted, but you did it in a moment of silence, and you are right. We added 2 people to a group of 4 people, and now we have a group of 6 people. I'm like, you are correct. That is factually accurate narrating, and it didn't get in the way. So I take that as a breath of fresh air.
You know what? Fair enough. Because, yeah, that was pretty rude to some of the actors who were like, I have to display so much distrust in just my face. And, like, we're doing deep politics, like, and betrayals are happening and all this. And then Minnie Driver, just coming in and being like, and then she was going to betray him. But he didn't know that. I'm like, what? Let me watch the show.
Yeah.
Let me watch the show, Minnie Driver.
Watch the fucking show.
I'm sorry to keep ragging on Minnie Driver specifically. I don't know her character's name, and I don't know who wrote this.
I'm flat out going to say her character does not have a name. Her character is called Stunt Casting Placeholder, and that is it.
Actually, I think she is. She does have a name, but whatever it is. It's Seol or something like that. Her character is whoever the Empress, like, loved. The Empress is like, we're going to be the next one of these. There was, like, this like, historical figure that the Empress was like, Sanche showed the elves how to find stuff, and I'm going to be the next Sanche. I think Minnie Driver is that person.
Okay, interesting. Now, this is the other frustrating thing, is that she never says anything that helps us understand this wildly complicated world as well. That is the
wildly complicated.
Yeah. Like, she could easily be in that story, be like, I'm the one that she liked, and she was trying to be me, but she failed while doing. Like, or like, hey, now they're entering this town. This town recently converted to the Empire. And here's the thing about free kingdoms: they don't like being converted to an empire. And like, just tell me what's going on that is expositionally necessary to understand the subtext, as opposed to saying the subtext.
That would help a little. I would actually say, though, one of my big complaints of this show is that a lot of the things that happen in it we're told them and not shown them.
That's also true, yeah.
It is a huge problem. Like, I think like 18 times we're told the people are starving and there's no food. And we don't encounter a single hungry person. We don't go across a single empty field that has no wheat in it or anything. None of the 7 are like, man, I haven't eaten in a week. And like every town we go into, they're starving. Like, people don't seem starving.
Or every time they enter a new town, like the cost of bread has tripled or quadrupled. And it's like, we've got to sell more and more in order to feed our way to this journey.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a kingdom that's starving to death. So that is a very, like, told, not shown. And then the other, like, told, not shown thing that I think is really important is they keep talking about, like, the world's weird. And Minnie Driver mentions it in narration a lot. Like, oh, there's 2 comets in the sky and the world's going to end soon? But, like, nothing has happened. There's no earthquakes. There's no, like, weird magic popping up anywhere. It's just like, I don't think it is. I don't think the world is going to end soon. What are you talking about?
And I think it's one of those inherent problems that happens within fantasy and science fiction as well, when the normal world, and the air quote normal world, is not established strongly as to what in the normal world is special to us as an audience but is normal to them, and then what's special on top of that. We need to establish a baseline before you make the weird weird. Like, it's a fantasy world and you're like, there's 2 stars in the sky. And I'm like, okay, is that the normal setup for this fantasy world? But then you have to be like, no, that's not normal here. And I'm like, oh, okay, but I just brought my imagination in and accepted anything you told me to be this world. So you need to set up a baseline and then establish what has changed. When you just show me a bunch of shit and you're like, some of it, all of it is weird, some of it is normal to them, and some of it's weird to them. I'm like, but I don't know what or why.
Yeah, another reason that having 4 episodes maybe isn't enough, because it is very unclear what is standard in this world right off the bat. I think the only thing that was clearly not standard, that they did a good job of being like, this is the first monster ever.
That they did a pretty good job.
When the monster came and like killed all the kings and queens, it was very clear like they had never seen a monster. This is a world without monsters. It's the first monster. I'm like, okay, got it. Never had a monster. This is the only thing you've done well in establishing a difference from a norm. Everything else, I'm like, I don't know, comets, and then there's nothing even happening. Do you normally have grain? Where'd the grain go? Stop eating it. Plant more.
Yeah. Just
Is there a famine? Is there a drought? Is it a magical plague?
Why are we not working to just grow more traditional crops? Because, yeah, at several different points, they're just like, we're running low on crops. And I'm like, when do we harvest more? Are the farmers okay? Like, what is preventing us? Like, and it's like, well, there's only one answer. When we ran out of some rice, and there's only one answer: interdimensional conquest. I see why, as a power-hungry person, you would want that. I don't understand.
As a hungry person?
As a hungry person, I don't understand how that actually solves your goals in any way.
Yeah, and I think you're supposed to get more food like after a war's over, because you stop burning each other's fields and shit. Like you're at peace now. I think food more.
I think food should be more, but you would think, but it doesn't make a lot of sense in many regards. Yeah. So a contrived storytelling device, a weird world where we're told and not shown, and a world that it should be fun. The premise of this is inherently fun, and I did even have hope. Like the first episode, when Minnie Driver's elf is like, is it 7? I think
7.
Here are the 7 characters you're going to meet. And they each get this like title card sequence when she's like, it's the butcher, it's the lark. And it's this like
2 mages.
This D&D introduction where they all float by and do their own thing. And I'm like, awesome. We're going to get like this isn't going to be Fellowship of the Ring. We are going to get a 15-minute assembling of the team. And these fucks are going to go on an adventure. But then they just still take 4 episodes to assemble the 7 people we were just told that are in the party.
Yeah, and kind of almost none of them already know each other. This is not like one person knows one person knows one person. It is very much like we're just coming across some people.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. But like there are like fun elements that just like I feel like there's so many things that I can describe that I liked, but also weren't good. Like on paper were actually like perfectly done. Like I think the Lark and the guy who becomes the Witcher is named Fuel, but I'm probably just gonna call him Future Witcher, First Witcher.
Yeah.
When Lark and First Witcher like meet, they're in prison together and they have a fight and they're very combative. And then he escapes and she steals his necklace, so they have to meet again. And then they have to fight soldiers. And I'm like, this is a perfect meet cute of warriors, perfectly done. But also I hardly enjoyed it. And I don't know why, because the actors are really good. The meet cute was set up perfectly. The fight scenes were pretty good for those parts. I really like the Lark's like tiny knives. I think that's really cool. I think they're really fun. But yeah, I honestly can't even explain why it doesn't work.
I think that
I guess the world wasn't explored enough for me to like feel comfortable in it and enjoy the moments, maybe?
I think the world is definitely part of it. I think the world distracts from one of my strengths of the show. One of the things that I really like is I actually think that the character work is really playful and fun. I agree with you. That's a fun meet cute. They have sincere chemistry. The romance felt a little rushed when it actually kind of kicks into gear.
But they felt like warriors in arms.
They still, I still bought in. It just took like a small leap of faith for me to be like, okay, we've gone full romance. But the meet cute worked, the charisma worked. And I think it's because when we're having these character beats, they are speaking with modern dialogue as well. And I think that there's a dialogue style shift between exposition and character, which I find actually really jarring and distracting. And it did make it hard to get into the world, where it'll be like when the Witcher is talking to Lark, he'll be like, oh, you think you're better than me? I can fight you. Oh, fuck off. And then as soon as he gets into exposition, he'll be like, we must tread softly through the next fortnight as we head towards the kingdom, as it follows fallow fields through the fallen snow. We must. And then as soon as they start talking like people again, he's just like, that was a pretty good fight from you. I'm like, why do you have two entirely different styles of dialogue for the same character as well? And I feel like there is an inherent like switch from stiff high fantasy to modern colloquial fantasy between what is happening. And it really makes it hard to get into a vibe. But the modern friend-like character beat work really pops. And I'm like, I buy these friendships and I like you all talking to one another. And I hate the second you start talking about things that are happening in this world.
Yeah, yes, I think that's absolutely true. It kind of makes me feel like, I didn't think of it that way, but now that you've said it, it almost feels like when they get to exposition or like the monoliths or like overarching stuff, they remember they're elves.
Yes.
And they get like, we're elves, by the way. But when they're just hanging out, they're like, we're humans with pointy ears. Because I will say, for a show that is entirely elves except for one dwarf character, they're humans.
But yeah.
There is nothing elven about anybody except for pointy ears. It's not like we're immortal and we have inherent magic and nothing about this feels like a show about elves. Except for when they do exposition and they're like, we are hotty-totty now. We have many highborns and we are highborn elves. And I'm like, okay, but like the rest of the time you're clearly humans.
Yeah.
What does it matter that the humans show up when you are so humans?
Absolutely. Yeah, they talk to each other the way characters in Game of Thrones talk to each other. And then when they do exposition, they talk the way Lord of the Rings high elves talk to one another, which is in like whispers and mysteries. And it's just that just
whispers and mysteries.
That's all it is.
That's a great way to describe elves. Riddles and whispers and mysteries.
Yeah, and then suddenly, like, they bump into someone who's a friend, and they're Jon Snow, and they're just like down to clown and fuck around and have a good time. So yeah, I think that does kind of hurt it. But the character work I do really enjoy, and I think that all of these actors really found who these characters are and the relationship between them. I think all of the characters as performances pop.
Yeah, I think each one of these actors was given like a very thorough character sheet of who they were, because a lot of it's not shown on screen, but of like, this is your backstory and you're gonna like believe it and have really gone through it emotionally and figured it out. Like, I think a great example is the two mages who we meet super late in the show, and like we never get backstory on them. We don't get flashbacks of who they are or what they did, but they have a very emotional scene that again makes me feel nothing because it's out of nowhere, but an emotional scene about how they tried to resurrect their mom when she died. And like they're both crying and they both get it, and they're both like, no, we studied these characters, we talked about it off screen for sure, we know exactly what happened and who of us is to blame. Like, we've worked out the character beats. They're not gonna land for you as a viewer, but we as actors did so much work on this. And it makes me feel bad.
I fully get that.
But they put so much work in.
Yes, they put a lot of work in, and I think like the highlight of that, because it's maybe the most self-contained one, is Francesca Mills.
As Meldoff.
As Meldoff.
She's so great.
As Meldoff the dwarf, and her hammer Gwen. A phenomenal performance, knows the character, and weirdly kind of works the most because she has the most screen time alone. Like, we're introduced to her as she's just on a revenge story, and it's a clean, straight line revenge story, and that works. And then when we get this very emotional, well-performed scene from her where she's telling the story of her hammer Gwen / her dead love Gwen, and that is just a self-contained, I loved someone, they died, I'm on a revenge story, A, B, C. You don't need to know that this was the kingdom and it changed hands here, and then the local fief changed over to their apprentice, and you don't. It's just ABC with a clean, great performance.
It's a clean, great performance, and like just like a really nice, like but sad story of like I wanted vengeance for Gwen, and like you feel like she loved her so much. And then just the story of her, like, I took Gwen's ashes and smelted into the metal of this hammer. So this is Gwen. This isn't a hammer I named after Gwen. This is her. And she gets vengeance on the people who killed her through her ashes being in this hammer. And I'm like, this is the greatest love story of all time. And I never even met Gwen. Mm-hmm. So just from a storytelling perspective, it's a beautiful self-contained story. She acts the shit out of it.
Yeah.
From a story perspective, I will say she also is good that she's on her own and doesn't know anyone. Because she's kind of the only character who, when everyone meets her, isn't like, oh, hey, I know who you are, so we don't have to do any backstory.
Right.
It's like when Lark and Fiol meet, it's like, hey, you're the Lark. Hey, you're the guy who protects the Empress. And then so no exposition, no discussions needed. It's like they run into Michelle Yeoh's character, and she's like, you raised me. So no need to explain who you are or have a conversation about it.
Right.
We'll just narrate it.
Or even just develop character. It is just, here is your character bio. It is a 2-line sheet. You raised me. Your group was killed. You lost your sword. That's your character.
And you don't get to tell that to anyone and tell your own story. But Meldoff got to tell her own story. So she got the best writing and like the best story at the same time.
Yeah, and then had the performance to match it.
Yes, and her and Brother Death were so cute together. I don't even remember what Brother Death's backstory was, but he was just wonderful with her. They had an incredible relationship.
Yeah, they had a very strong rapport. And I love a good, playfully combative rapport between two people, and it really pops between Meldoff and Brother Death. Yeah, that was the highlight relationship of the series for me, for sure.
Easily. And shout out to Brother Death for having a name I can remember without looking at the IMDb page.
Oh, you gotta love that.
Love that.
I don't know what it is about The Witcher specifically, like what it is specifically about The Witcher that like I always have a little bit of trouble with fantasy. Fantasy jargon just does not want to stay in my head. But man, The Witcher stuff, it's like we watched the animated movie, we've watched the series, I've played all the games, you've read the book, and I'm like, these words do not stick to my ribs. No matter what, gun to my head, someone ran at me and was like, name a character from The Witcher who was in The Witcher. Bang, I'm dead. I don't name a city from the like. There are times during
Not even Yennefer?
There are times. Okay, Yennefer I can file away. But there are times like while watching this where I'm like, man, once they get to Tamriel, and I'm like, no, that's Skyrim. Shit. Huh. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure we're in Castellet Rock now. And I'm like, no, that's Game of Thrones. None of the words.
So some fantasy words will.
Some fantasy words will.
I know you can name most of the Game of Thrones stuff.
Yeah, it takes more effort than sci-fi or real world stuff, but fantasy stuff can linger with me with a little more effort. Witcher, I've consumed so much of, and none of it's sticking. None of it's sticking at all.
I agree. It is more of a challenge. I don't know if it's because the names are almost like too new. Like, except for like Yennefer, which is Jennifer with a Y, which makes it easy to remember. Like Yennefer, you're like, Jennifer with a Y. Like, it kind of sticks.
Yeah.
But every other character is like, your name isn't like, there's nothing in it that's recognizable as a word. Like, if I'm going to go to Lord of the Rings, I'm like, Legolas has the word leg in it.
Right.
The word leg is right there. If I'm going to go in this Witcher show, I'm like,
if I want to get the place with the most door, I'm going to go to Mordor.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest door.
The words.
Yeah, the biggest door is Mordor.
But the Witcher names have no words in the names. Because it's like, let's see who we got here. We got Fiol. We got Baelor. We got Sindral. Zakari. Meldoff. There's no words in the names.
Yeah, nothing.
To remember.
Nothing grabs
to latch onto. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
Which maybe tells me they shouldn't have changed Jaskier's name from Dandelion, because it's easier to remember.
Yeah.
It's a word.
I get that. Dandelion does stick around, for sure. I agree with that.
And here's what makes it even harder to remember, and we probably should have talked about this earlier when we were like going overarching stuff. They introduced us to like 8 places. And then the Empress made it one empire, and they renamed all the places.
But then when they would come up with the title of all the places, would put underneath it, formerly Zan Trachal.
infuriating.
Absolutely
Because
infuriating.
we meet these people from different clans in different cities, and like the Lark is from Brescia, I think, and Fiol is from Sintrea, which I only remember because Sintra is like a place in the regular Witcher time, so I assume that's the origin of Sintrea. So I'm like, they're from these places, and then they're like, it's episode 2, and it's like, none of them are called that anymore. One kingdom. Like, I just learned so many names.
I just remembered
I
you.
did homework for you.
Yes. And especially when the fact that this was, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5, but separate kingdoms.
I think it was 3.
It was
she
3?
She killed 3 rulers.
Okay. So 3 separate kingdoms. The fact that these are 3 distinct kingdoms, which I'm sure within Witcher lore and this mythology have their own separate cultural identities and histories and this and that. But the fact that they have independent identities does not come into play for the story as well. So it's just extraneous, wasted time and information, because really the only thing that is relevant in terms of the storytelling is that when these characters are going through towns and when they're trying to overthrow the Empress, it is really just the fact that a lot of the citizens are going hungry, which we never see.
Nope.
And are resentful that they have lost their independence and are now under a larger empire. And your previous independent identity is not relevant to this story. It does not matter that you were Sintra. And I'm not like, ooh, I know. I know the foods of Sintra and the cultural identity of Sintra. And they're getting homogenized by this single empire. I'm just like, all 3 of you are pretty much the exact identical kingdom with identical costumes and places and problems, and none of you have anything unique. So all I need to know is that you don't like that you're part of an empire. That's all that's relevant here.
Yeah. It's again, it's too much and not enough. It's like, we want to explore this, but we don't have time. So don't explore it. This is the story about 7 found family members who go and blow up a monolith and kill an empress and a beast.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
I don't care that the people of Brescia are like, oh, my identity. Like, one random guy at a bar got like 5 minutes of dialogue about this.
Yeah, exactly. Like just to be like, oh, now in the kingdom they have themed Centra restaurants. They've totally stolen. All right, like, I don't give a shit about your made up kingdom.
Yeah, unless it's going to be part of like a rebellion and you're going to be like, we want to be 3 separate countries again, which I'm like, I don't even care if you do that or don't. That's not what this story is about. But also, I don't really know what this story is about. I don't know why any of the 7 people are on this journey. It's like they say it's for revenge at first, and they're like, we have to save the world. And I'm like, I don't think the world was going to end. I think you ended the world, by the way.
It does seem to make the world a little bit worse by the end of it.
Yeah, the conjunction of the spheres was bad, and they caused it.
Yeah, this is basically The Witcher : the multiverse of madness, is what this is. There's a multiversal collapse at the end of this series.
Which is not what the bad guys wanted.
Right. Yeah, that's not, but spoiler, the end of this series is a multiversal collapse, which creates the universe that The Witcher exists in.
Yeah, so the multiversal collapse means this world used to just be elves and dwarves, and now it's humans and monsters. And like, humans are pretty bad. I'm not going to say we rule. But this world didn't have monsters before conjunction of the spheres. That's way worse. You've made this world so bad when you blew up that monolith.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if we should be celebrating you.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree with that.
Your intentions were good.
Yeah.
But this is a story of people who killed many, many people. Like, anyone who's had someone die from a monster should hate these people.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like, it is like, it is, I say, equivalent to like 3 countries wanting to leave the EU and they blow up Earth. Like, that was not equivalent. Like, awesome, I get it. You don't want to be unified and related to one another in any way. But blowing up Earth was not maybe the best solution for this.
I would say not even blowing up Earth. It's like, we don't want to be one continent, so we're gonna like let aliens invade that are really dangerous, that are scarier than us.
Yeah, that's fair.
And also, humans genocide the elves. So
So it's all bad.
As we learn in The Witcher later.
Yeah, it's all bad.
Oops.
So yeah, things get considerably worse due to the actions of these heroes in an attempt to do the right thing.
In an
I
attempt to
will
do
give
the
them
right
that
thing,
credit.
we make the first Witcher, we kill the first monster.
Yeah, yeah.
Important stuff.
Should we talk a little bit about Lark and the music of it all?
I was gonna ask you how you felt about so many people singing at Lark.
Miserable.
Miserable. Whenever she sang, it was mostly good.
She is a good singer.
She's a good singer.
She's a very good singer.
There was reasons for it. It's like, I'm gonna be your anchor for when you witcher out too much.
That I think worked. I really liked that.
That really worked. But once an episode, they would run into a rando who's like, "You're the Lark," and they would start singing her own songs at her, and she would just look like, "Oh no."
Truly upset. Please
do
don't.
it.
Please don't. I do love when they were passing someone on the road and the girl started singing her song at her. It was like, "Can you sing right now?" And the Lark's like, "I'm busy. I'm on a revenge story. We're in a field." And the woman's like, "You know how it goes. Oh, people of low." And like, just like the father who comes over and is like, no, leave. Don't sing a singer's song at them.
He puts a hand on her and is like, walks her away like, no. That is so embarrassing. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Lark.
Yeah.
Can you imagine going up to like Beyonce? All the single ladies.
No.
Beyonce, you know it.
No, daughter. Daughter, let's go. Daughter, let's go. Daughter, let's go. Daughter, let's go. Yeah.
I would be mortified. I would, oh my God, I'd never live that down if I sang at Beyonce.
Oh God, truly miserable. And I think that like they are off the mark with a lot of the like music based stuff in this because like Yaskier, I think, works because it's like my music is about telling stories and people's stories living on. And that inherently like holds something within the narrative of The Witcher.
And also changing minds through music. Like he makes people like Geralt by having all these fun songs about Geralt.
Absolutely. But he has to deal with a gamut of reactions as well. We also see him playing songs at a pub when he's just like, "I'd like to do a slow, emotional one right now." And someone will be like, "Fuck you, get off the stage."
They throw bread at him.
And they're throwing bread at him, and they're like, "We fucking hate the slow, emotional ones."
Every musician goes through this.
Absolutely. We're just like, play the hits. But like, I think that Lark exists in this kind of like weird, terrible, Tenacious D. This is not the greatest song in the world. This is just a tribute of the like, we can't figure out the song or the moment where she did inspire everyone, but you have to know that everyone has been inspired. Like, she is a great singer. I will agree with that. Gives a nice performance at a bar where most people are a good, attentive crowd. And then there's one table of drunk assholes. There always is at every live performance.
Andrew knows.
I know very, very too well. So she gives a nice performance at one bar once. And then it's just a series of going throughout the world and everyone being like, "Your song changed our lives and has inspired us, and the core temperature of the kingdom has changed."
And this is inherently not working because when her plot starts, like when her sister is killed, when she kind of joins this story, she gives up being a bard. She's like, "I'm not the Lark anymore. Now I'm just a warrior." But her influence is through her songs that she has stopped playing once the Empress has taken over.
And we never see that influence kick in.
Yeah.
And she never believes in it anymore.
No, she's kind of just like, "Oh shit, that was a good ripple effect I made accidentally." It's like you went to the wrong calling, I guess. She's like, "I'm a warrior now." And the world was like, "You're not." It's like when Harry Styles tries to act and they're like, "Do songs."
Yeah.
Go play some music, Harry Styles.
Yeah.
Stop that. Yeah, it doesn't work in any way because it's not like she was like a warrior and performing. It's not like every time they stopped and had a battle, they like gathered the people and did a little song and that like resonated through the world as they traveled. She hasn't performed in months.
Yeah. We've only ever seen her perform really one song.
Literally one song and then one other song alone in a cave with her friends.
Yes.
Which couldn't have reached the world.
Yeah. And which is also a buzzkill. A buzzkill.
Everyone was having a great time.
Yes.
Until she sang that song.
Absolutely. Because that's the other, I think, like, huge difference in Bard characters between her and Yaskier is that, like, Yaskier is written as a character who, like, everyone's hammered. The party is popping off. And Jaskier grabs a guitar and plays a party banger for his friends. A sea shanty that everyone sings along with and has a good time. And the Lark has a buzz-killing, night-ending, everyone like pay attention to my quiet operatic, and it just doesn't work and vibe in the fantasy world in the same way.
Yeah. Yasker can read a room.
Yeah, she can't read a room.
The Lark can't. Yeah, the Lark is that person who grabbed a guitar too late in the night.
Yeah, and it was like, do you want to hear Wonderwall? And we're like, fuck you. Oh my God.
No, I was having a really good chat.
Yes. Yeah, and I think I get mad at the Lark a lot in that scene, just as someone who grew up around theater kids. You know, like there's one musical theater person who's like, "It's my birthday. Who wants me to hear me sing several songs from Rent?" And 3 lines in, I'm like, "Okay, wow, great job.
Oh man.
Okay, can I get you a drink? Let's stop this." Everyone hates this.
It's fair. No, that's a fair assessment of the Lark.
Yep.
I need to talk about the Empress. And I feel like I should talk about her as a character, but I only want to talk about her hair.
I understand.
Whoa. There's ladders in her hair. There's multiple different kinds of ladders in her hair.
There's stars and constellations, a full circle of ladders.
This is what we meant when we said, like, everyone did a really good job and worked really hard. Like, this hair took hours. These are crazy designs that are in this woman's mind head up on the top of her noggin, and I couldn't watch a scene for the life of me when any of them were in her hair.
No, and at one point she was like, I'm gonna put on a coat and blend into the public crowd, a thing I've not been able to do. And I'm like, you have a hair ladder in front of your face.
You clearly have hair that 3 hairdressers working together in tandem had to do, and you're like, I'm just a peasant. You ain't.
No, you are not.
No, you ain't, girl.
No, yeah.
It looks cool as hell.
It does look cool as hell. Another, the hairstylist on the show did a great job. Does not serve the plot in any way. Looks great. Also, her costume when she switches into Warrior Empress mode, that is a badass set of armor. That's really fucking cool. That looks terrific.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, all of her outfits were really cool in different ways, but that was a very much like, oh shit, you're going to war now. This is a different lady, because she'd been so delicate and like beautiful until this point, and then she just pops out in totally different armor, her hair fully pulled back, and I was like, oh, you give off way different vibes.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of proud of you, Empress.
A little bit.
You have really succeeded in a man's world.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely like part of me that is rooting for her at points throughout this series. Absolutely.
Yeah, she's like nonsense. But at the same time, I'm like, good for you for not just being like a fertility pawn to be married off. Right.
Yeah, she took control of her own story, of her own journey. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, too, it's like, I don't even know if she was that power hungry. She said the same idiot idea as everyone else, which is, what if food is in other dimensions, which is a moronic idea. But she at least had the idea of, let's get food, which is slightly better than the previous leadership, which was, let's conquer dimensions.
Was that her? No, I feel like it was actually like flipped, because I thought Soft Boy General wanted food because he's like, the grain stores are down. I thought she wanted to like educate and change everyone's mind when they got to New Worlds.
Oh, she did want that.
She was like a colonizer.
Yeah, she was like, get food, then colonize.
And this guy, and like Soft Boy General was just like, I just want grain for the people.
Yeah. And then the Mage General was like, I actually just want conquest.
Chaos magic, yeah.
I just want conquest.
I'm just here to kill and get powerful.
Yeah.
So slightly, Soft Boy General, the best of them all, I guess, at the end of the day.
To a certain degree, very weird, and I guess might be the origin of the Wild Hunt?
I got the impression he was definitely one of the members of the Wild Hunt. You send someone to a weird dimension, they put on a skull mask. That feels like Wild Hunt energy.
That does feel like strong Wild Hunt energy. Yeah, absolutely. I like the dynamic between the 3 of them. I would say that was the easiest to follow and most clearly written and performed kind of like political subterfuge plot line of like, here are the dynamics at play between these 3 people all trying to manipulate one another.
Oh, the 3 political people.
The 3 political people in like the court of the Empress. I feel like that actually did really work for me.
I think that did actually like work as much as I think like in every Witcher show, the politics stuff is always the most boring and doesn't work. And they haven't found a way to make it captivating in 3 seasons of Witcher stuff. That was the clearest and most interesting. Yeah. When she actually gets soft boy general on her terms of like, I'll make your boyfriend a part of the council and you guys can actually be together. I'm like, oh wow, that was clever. Oh, respect.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It worked.
It worked.
It worked.
And I don't know what Baelor wants, the other mage. He seemed to just have no allies.
Just chaos.
He was never like clever.
No, he was never.
He was never clever.
He was just powerful.
He was just powerful.
They needed him. They needed him, and he was taking advantage
dynamics
of
were
the entire
clear.
situation. But yeah, the dynamics were clear. The dynamics really worked. I will say that, like, talking about how like the politics of The Witcher is probably the most boring thing available, is that I'm really sad that in a post Game of Thrones world, I feel like every fantasy since Game of Thrones learned all of the wrong lessons from Game of Thrones, which was like I feel like every show since has been like, what people loved about Game of Thrones was slow moving political drama. And it's like, no, people liked that in Game of Thrones or tolerated it because it was a ticking clock of tension. The political drama we always knew was leading to a war or a battle or a collapse of the kingdom. There was something that they always set up that was like, if this political problem pops off, then this. And I feel like fantasy since has been like, okay, so if this political problem, then still this political problem. Like, no, you need to have a tension and an underlying thing that makes it a powder keg. And nothing feels like a powder keg in this or in the Witcher world, I would say, in general.
I would agree with that. And I also think the thing that they don't take away from Game of Thrones is politics, is that the relationships are very important in Game of Thrones. We liked all of the Starks, and all of the Starks had these really close bonds and like people they loved, and it was like sacrificing people you love or saving people you love. Like relationships were at the forefront in Game of Thrones, even though there was all those politics as well. And in this one, I'm like, all 3 people in power love no one and would sacrifice nothing for anybody. Like, you have to feel like a human being.
Yeah.
You have to feel like, Cersei, who will do anything for her children. She's a terrible person, but she would have done anything for her kids.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have some kind of human dynamic to you. And I know they're elves, but there still has to be that inkling of you're real people with things to lose.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's the drama. That's the heart of character.
That's the heart of everything.
That's what it should be. But
that's what Gwen and I can't believe I still can't remember your name, Gwen's girlfriend. Meldoff. Gwen had the axe is named Gwen. That's a name.
That's a name.
Why did she get a name?
Sticks to your ribs. Yeah. Gwen and Meldoff, one of the highlights of the show. I definitely feel great about that.
And I'm almost done, but a quick, what were they thinking? Why did Dylan Moran get 4 great lines and then get ripped in sunder?
Why was he like advertised as a lead in this show, only show up in the 4th episode, get ripped asunder, but have one of the greatest fucking performances?
Dylan Moran was great. What were you thinking? Why wasn't he a bigger part? Why wasn't he one of the other characters or something? He ruled. And also I was like, I cannot picture Dylan Moran in a fantasy thing in any way, shape, or form.
And he worked.
Nailed it.
Yeah, prior to this, I'm like, I also could not picture him here.
Yeah.
And it really worked as this like semi-drunk, realistic sellsword.
Yeah, he's like, I've survived everything so far, I'm probably going to survive this. He just kind of casually walks through fight scenes and is having a fun time. And I'm like, this character rules.
Yeah.
He's crushing this. He got ripped asunder. That sucks. Half of his body on the floor.
Oh my God.
What? There was no other brutal death in this entire show except for Dylan Moran.
And it was great. And just like the quick, deep blue sea-ness of it all. And the preceding line of just like, they're not that scary when you can see their asshole, are they? Whoosh. Ripped you a new asshole.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Did.
A great character. And also him walking through the court as the queen is dying.
Yeah.
And just, there's peaches in the kitchen, everybody. Just so you know. Unbelievably good. His callousness to watching the rise and fall of a kingdom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like, what an interesting character. I was instantly like, the show's almost over, so I guess it doesn't matter that you've killed him. But, like, I want his prequel show.
Yeah.
Can we get a prequel to this prequel?
Love
about
this dude.
Dylan Moran? Love this dude.
Love this dude. Love this
So,
dude.
leaving on a high note about how I love Dylan Moran in this.
I'm cool with that. Well, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we discussed, what would you change about this if you could change anything? Before we do ask that final question, we will remind you, as we do every week, please take a moment, rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever you might be listening to this right now. When you rate, review, and subscribe, it helps us move up the charts. It helps us get recommended to new listeners. It warms our hearts because we read those as well, and that really makes us feel good. And then also when new people find the podcast, they check those reviews, and they're more likely to hit download and become a new listener if they see those there.
Yeah, wherever you are right now, you can probably leave a 5-star review, and we would love that. And you should do it right now.
And it's
pause for review.
And it's fun and lovely when we see them all around the world as well. That's cool too.
Yeah, we can tell which country they come from, and sometimes I'm like, ooh, Thailand.
Yeah, check it out. So that's always fun. So free way to support the podcast if you want to support us. If you do want to support us monetarily, if you have a little in the budget, you can check us out on Patreon, which is a monthly subscription service where you'll get different levels of bonuses depending on your level of subscription. At the $10 a month hero level, you get a bonus episode of this podcast every single month, and you get immediate access to the back catalog as well. Nothing but hits.
All the hits. There are so many episodes. They're ad-free. They're on things we never covered on the regular podcast. There is a cornucopia of gems over on the Patreon.
Oh, a cornucopia.
A cornucopia.
Wow.
Using my elf words today.
Yeah, I like it. The last Patreon episode we did was The Abyss.
Oh, The Abyss.
So if you want to hear us slam on James Cameron drowning a man, then check it. It's a wild one. If you don't know about some of the making of The Abyss, we lay it out for you in a way that is... Whoa.
Horrifying.
So check out that episode. That's available right now. But you get access to the full back catalog at $10. And if your budget changes, you can cancel. You can change your level at any given month, depending on how you're feeling and what's going on in your life. So check it out at patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That is patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And now let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
This is a tough one because, as we said, the parts kind of all don't come together, but very few of the parts are horribly bad. So I think my biggest change that I think would help me at least enjoy this and make me feel motivated and on edge is I want more danger and change to the world. They keep talking about how the world's gonna end soon and dealing with the monoliths is breaking the world. So I would like earthquakes. I want more monsters coming through. I want just some weird mists popping up. That swamp that makes you see your memories should not have already been there. That should have been a new thing that just came because the monoliths are all messed up. They're like, what was that? And they're like, the world is changing because of the monoliths and we're elves. Just more danger in the world, because danger is also how kind of found families also bond together. We save each other. Because I think the fight in the bank is the only time they really fight together in a cool way. And I think that did bond those three together.
Largely because the show doesn't have the budget for fighting.
That too, but I thought that fight was actually really good.
I agree.
I liked that one a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna add more show and not tell of what's happening because of these monoliths. Of the world really is breaking. We have to do something to motivate the characters to be we have to go kill the Empress. They're destroying the world. They don't even know it because they're just in their tower and they can't see it. They're not out here in the low-born areas. It's the reason there's no food. It's killing the crops. Just more show and not tell. I'm gonna add more show, less tell. What would you change, Andrew?
I definitely like that. More show, less tell. You need more monsters in the show that is the origin of the monster hunters. I agree with that. There should be more hunting monsters in the Hello, there's going to be dinosaurs in this dinosaur park, right?
There'll be a dinosaur.
That's some. So I love and I am on board with that. My big change is kind of a narrative device structural change. Yaskier and Mini Driver gone. Hear me out, or at least from the beginning.
Okay.
We build and earn Yaskier.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to hold on to Mini Driver.
Yeah, Yaskier and Mini Driver from the beginning, gone. That's not the narrative device of how we tell this story. I think that Lark is the central character of this story. We need to get everyone together quicker, but I think Lark should be someone who doesn't fight during this series. Is someone who used to be a fighter and sincerely doesn't want to fight anymore and believes that the power of stories and song is more important. And one thing that we would see on The Witcher that I think really works is when Jaskier was trying to write the story of things that were currently happening. So I think we should see Lark working on the song of what they are currently doing. She's got previous songs that she's playing at pubs as they travel and get this team together. And maybe it is she sings a song at a pub and they gather the new adventurer inspired by that song. And is gathering people as they go while she's trying to write the song of what is currently happening. And then the series ends with like, you know, the people of that main city knowing her songs. We've seen more of her songs. We've seen it inspire people. We know that that is her power at this point. That is what she does. She's not the fighting one. And then she sings a song for the people of that city as opposed to having it sung at her, referencing a previous instance when they all know her music. So she sings, inspires the people, inspires the revolution, kind of proves the power of these stories. I think the series then ends with like her finalizing the song and playing it for the people. And then we can cut to Jaskier like getting a request for that song at a pub to be like, that story has lived on.
That song lasted 1,200 years.
Yes, absolutely. Because the Empress's storyline in this is all about like she doesn't want to be on the footnote of history. And I think she should be the footnote of that song. And to be like, it shows that like the ones who are willing to tell the story are the ones whose story lasts on. And I would like it to build up to cut to Jaskier telling that story that lives on to this day.
I like that a lot because, why is Minnie Driver doing any of it? Because the bards are the storytellers, so either Jaskier or the Lark should be the narrator.
We have two
and Lark should get
built-in
to tell her own
storytellers.
Lark should get to tell her own story. So Lark as the storyteller who actually has another function then, because her and Fial both being warriors is like, it's good to have like multiple warriors, but it is just a double down of the character.
Yeah, it's the same character twice.
You're two outcasts warriors, which can be a bonding experience, but one of you has to bring something different to this.
Yeah.
And that is obviously the music. Yeah, I
love
that change.
Yeah. For the story to start with Minnie Driver being like, if only someone was willing to be a storyteller. Now let's meet this storyteller. Like,
and she is no longer telling stories.
Exactly. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So yeah, I think we remove the whole narrative device of the show and just tell it as it is with Lark being the primary storyteller.
I think that would be great because I really actually liked the girl who played Lark, and
I think
Minnie
she did a great
Driver is
job.
just reading some lines.
I agree. Yeah.
Excellent. I love it.
Sweet. We fixed it.
We fixed it.
We fixed it. We made it better. That is going to do it for us this week for The Witcher Blood Origins. We're going to be back next week. There's January is going to be a fun one. We're doing a bit of a one-off thing because there's not a lot of new shows and movies coming out in January. So whenever that happens, we like to have a little fun on the network.
We pick a little theme.
We're doing a little robots.
Robots, if you're nasty.
Robots, if you're nasty. So we're going to be doing robots all January. Next week, we're going to be talking about RoboCop. Afterwards, we're going to be doing Alita Battle Angel, Iron Giant, Terminator Salvation. So a month of robots. Next week on the podcast, RoboCop.
If you like robots, don't miss January.
You are going to want to stick around for January. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can find me on Instagram at Ivimey, Ivimey.
You can find me at Words of Diana on Twitter, Pics of Diana on Instagram. Depends on what you're looking for, pics or words.
Pics or words. And you can find both of us at From Superheroes, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.